Once a month, Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast, answers voicemail questions the listeners send in. Here's one now.
Hey, Paula. My name's Chris. My wife and I moved to Orlando in the beginning of the year. My wife works as a manager for a YMCA after-school program, and I'm a flight instructor building my time to become an airline pilot. Our dream is to build passive income through rental properties over about the next 30 years. And so that by the time we're about 55, we want to be financially independent, have about 15 or so buy and hold type investment properties. For me to retire from the airlines at that point with flight benefits, and from there out be able to travel and see the world without any job obligations outside of those rental properties. The thought or the plan of how to do that has always been to purchase a duplex, live in half of it, rent out the other half, pay it down enough to be able to buy another one and repeat. Several years ago, I read about your Airbnb experiment, though. And while the timing when I read it wasn't right for us to do that, the idea came back up to me once we moved down here just because we have a little bit more time on our hands to manage something like that. We have enough money right now saved for a down payment, and my work is sometimes slow enough that it gets me antsy to get my hands on something to do like that. Unfortunately, we're not sure if we'll stay in the area for more than another year or two, and I do see some value in having your rental properties close to you, especially something like an Airbnb. So I'm hesitant to buy anything here just in case we don't end up staying. But on the other hand, I'm 25 and I do feel my life ticking away in front of me with me not being in the investment property game. Anyway, penny for your thoughts.
Chris, first of all, good for you for starting at this age. I mean, you've got an ideal plan. You're 25 years old. Over the next 30 years, you want to acquire 15 properties, so an average of one property every 2 years, which is totally reasonable and doable. You know, that's something that you can easily balance with full-time work, with a family. One property every 2 years is absolutely a reasonable goal. So congratulations for formulating that, particularly at that young of an age. Listen to me, when I was your age. Now, to your specific question about Airbnb hosting, what I would recommend is buying a property if the numbers make sense as a long-term rental. So in other words, run the analysis as though you are renting out that unit on a traditional 12-month lease. Base your rent estimates off of that. And then if you choose to Airbnb it out and subsequently make a higher income as a result of being an Airbnb host, that higher rent is icing on the cake, but it is not necessary in order to make that investment a viable option. The simple way to describe this is that rental property investing is the real estate industry and Airbnb hosting is the hospitality industry. When you are a rental property investor, you are simply offering somebody a commodity, which is four walls and a roof. And you are also offering the long-term repair and maintenance and upkeep of that commodity. It is, in that sense, not too dissimilar from renting out a car or renting out a forklift or a trailer. There are lots of different rental businesses. This one happens to deal in houses, but lots of people rent out all types of tangible assets. And the service that you provide is that you acquire and maintain those assets, and somebody else gets exclusive short-term use of said asset. If, however, you are running a hotel, which is functionally what you do as an Airbnb host, you're creating a guest experience. When the guest arrives, they are going to expect toilet paper and clean towels and linens and maybe little bottles of shampoo and conditioner and soap. They may expect some coffee waiting for them, dishwashing liquid, a fresh sponge, perhaps even, if you want to go above and beyond, perhaps you might leave them a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine. Those are all of the things that a hotel would do in order to create a guest experience. You know, they might really appreciate it if you set out a little booklet that has some of the activities in your area. Those aren't things that a tenant would ever expect or ask for. You know, a tenant is never going to call you to say, hey, the toilet's backed up. Could you please send us a toilet plunger? Or better yet, could you please show up with a toilet plunger? That doesn't happen in the world of renting out a commodity, but it does happen in the hospitality industry, in the hotel industry, which is essentially what you are in as an Airbnb host. And so making the comparison between rental property investing versus Airbnb hosting, I think is a little bit of a flawed premise. It's a little bit apples and oranges because they are fundamentally two very different industries with different demands and different expectations. You can, assuming that you have a decent occupancy rate, you could make more money as an Airbnb host, but that's because you're in an entirely different industry. And it is far more work to be an Airbnb host. So anyway, TLDR, buy a property if the numbers work for it to be a rental property investment. And then if you choose to Airbnb it out because you have extra time on your hands and you want to make more money, that's awesome. That's icing on the cake, but it's totally optional. You're not required to Airbnb it out. You can still kick it back over to the rental investing industry and the numbers still make sense and you're still able to totally execute your strategy based on that and that alone.
Hey, did you enjoy this excerpt from the Afford Anything podcast? Then be sure to subscribe to Paula's YouTube channel. Not only is every podcast episode and Ask Paula question released here on YouTube, other creative deep thought videos are created just for you. Remember, you can watch anything, just not everything. Fill your YouTube viewing time with more videos to make you think and grow so you can afford anything. Go ahead, hit that little red subscribe button. We'll take care of the rest.